Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Great show for y'all tonight. The NBA regular season has officially concluded. Had a lot of great games yesterday. Just about every basketball game had some sort of playoff implications behind it. We've got a play-in tournament that's set to start tomorrow in the Eastern Conference. The West will begin on Wednesday. I'm going to go and show you the standings right here for the NBA playoffs. If you can see that, the Philadelphia 76ers, the 1 seed, the Nets, the 2 seed in the East, they will play they will await their opponent for this play-in tournament. And the New York Knicks, the 4th seed, will take on the Atlanta Hawks in a rematch of last year's second round, the Milwaukee Bucks taking on the Miami Heat. Out west, you look at the Utah Jazz, who clinched the first round last night. They took on they will take on the 8th seed, which will be determined on Friday. As you look at the 2 seed Phoenix Suns will take on the winner of Golden State and the Lakers. And trust me, I will definitely get into that later in the show. The Nuggets will face the Blazers. The Clippers will face the Mavericks in a rematch of last year's Western Conference Western Conference first round. So I'm going to get into Steph in just a minute. Steph Curry, who is the true MVP this season. I'll also get into Brad Stevens, why I think he should probably be fired by the Boston Celtics. It seems like he's kind of lost the locker room a little bit. And I'll get into that later on the show. Also, obviously you guys know who I think the MVP is. But I'm going to go through each award: Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, Most Improved Player, Defensive Player of the Year, and of course the Most Valuable Player. I'll actually, for Most Valuable Player, give you my top 5. I'll give you 5 guys, 5 through 1, who I think should be in the contention for the MVP. So we got a lot to talk about. My man, Clutch Sports Talk, Ryan Flowers, go check out his show. He says, "Let's go Lakers." He is a Lakers fan, part of one of the biggest fan bases in American team sports. So I'm going to start with Steph. Last night, casual 46 points in a huge game for my Golden State Warriors against the Memphis Grizzlies. The winner of that game got the 8th seed, an opportunity to only have to win 1 game rather than 2 to get into the playoffs. So obviously, huge game. Steph last night, or yesterday afternoon really, drops 46, does his thing, hit 2 dagger threes inside of 2 minutes left, and did Steph Curry things. Now, I've been Steph's biggest cheerleader on this show. I've said probably for 2 months or so that this is the MVP. When you consider that, let me just go through what he did this regular season. Condensed year, 72 games. I believe he played, I think he played 63 games of the 72. Steph, just this season, led the league in scoring, 32 points a game. He's the oldest player since this guy, maybe you've heard of him, Michael Jordan, I think is his name. Oldest player since Michael Jordan to win the NBA scoring title. 38 30-point games, which is the most in a season since that guy I was talking about, Michael Jordan. 337 threes, which led the NBA by a mile. A little bit of context, too, about those 337 threes. Buddy Hield, great shooter for the Sacramento Kings, I like Buddy Hield a lot. He finished second in three-pointers made, okay? Buddy Hield finished second in the NBA in three-pointers made. He missed 1 game. He missed 1 game this season. Steph missed 9. Buddy Hield still didn't hit, but Steph still hit 55 more threes than Buddy Hield. Buddy played 8 more games than Steph Curry, and Steph still hit, and it was finished second in three-pointers made. Steph still hit 55 more threes than Buddy Hield. Okay, Steph, for the 4th time in his career, had 300 three-pointers made in a season. That is obviously the most ever. 7 games with 10 threes made. Second place all time. Not this season. All time in that category is his buddy and his splash brother, Klay Thompson, who has 5. So Steph, just this season, has more games of 10 made threes than anybody else has in their entire career. Think about that. Steph hit 5.3 three-pointers per game, which is the most of all time. And in a game against the Denver Nuggets, and I will definitely get into the best player of that Denver Nuggets team, who some people think is the MVP. Against the Denver Nuggets, Steph broke the Warriors' all-time scoring record. All of that while facing defenses like the one you're about to see right here. Last week against the Utah Jazz. If you could see Steph Curry right there, sorry to our podcast audience. You got Joe Ingles, Royce O'Neal, two good defenders. They say let's give a bear hug. Let's do a group hug with Steph Curry because we know he's the MVP. Let's give him a big hug, right? Two guys just hugging up on Steph, and it gets better. Let's look at a night later against the Phoenix Suns. You ready for this? This is late in the ball game. You're seeing that right. 4 defenders on Steph Curry. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges. All of them. 4 guys on one man. One 6'3", 180-pound man. 4 guys guarding him. That means, okay, I guess the 5th guy was on Andrew Wiggins or something. I don't know, Jay Crowder or whoever it was on Andrew Wiggins. That means they were okay with 3 guys being wide open, as long as it meant that baby-faced assassin out of Davidson didn't get a shot up. That's 4 guys guarding one man. Okay? Y'all get what I'm saying here? Did Nikola Jokic, I don't know if he faced a triple team. Nikola Jokic never faced a quadruple team. I can say that with confidence. Did a player in the NBA this season face a quadruple team? We've all seen double teams. Come on, we've all seen those. Triple teams here and there. Quadruple team. He is getting quadruple teamed, and the man averaged 32 points a game and had the best season of his career. I think including the unanimous MVP season. I'm not saying Steph is a unanimous MVP. I wouldn't suggest that. But when you consider what he did, condensed schedule, obviously, you were going to play as many games as you won the past, the 82. So it's going to look a little different. But he would have been on pace, had it been an 82-game season, to hit 400 threes, which last time he did that was his MVP year back in 2016 when the Warriors won 73 games. No disrespect to Nikola Jokic, but it goes back to something I know FS1 analyst, and he caught a lot of flack for it, but FS1 analyst Nick Wright pointed out, he said, and I totally agree with this, if Nikola Jokic wins the MVP, he'll be the worst MVP in NBA history. That doesn't mean he's a bad player. Nikola Jokic is a great player. He's a top 10 player in the league. But does that make him an MVP? Listen, people say, oh, well, Jamal Murray went out and he carried the Nuggets. Steph didn't have Klay Thompson all year. All year he didn't have Klay Thompson. Okay? He didn't have an all-star with him. Right? And, Nikola Jokic as a teammate had a guy who I think's in the running. I don't think he's going to win it, but I think he's in the running, Michael Porter Jr., for most improved player. Okay, so he's got that guy. So he's got a second scoring option. Steph, it depends. Is it Andrew Wiggins? Is it Jordan Poole? We know Draymond's job isn't to score the basketball. Is it, obviously James Wiseman's been out for a while. So the thing with Steph Curry is he's getting double teamed and triple teamed and, as this shows, quadruple teamed on a nightly basis and still led the league in scoring. And still led the NBA in scoring. By far the best shooter of all time. Showed that once again this season. I don't know what other argument you could possibly have against this guy. Okay? Here's something else. Here's 2 more things I'll get to, and then I'll get to Brad Stevens. Is that Steph, going to the year, they lost Klay Thompson for the season. A month before the year started, he tore his Achilles. It was a terrible blow to the organization and the team, and it sucked. Not just for Warriors fans like myself, but the whole NBA just felt terrible for Klay Thompson. He had missed the previous year with the ACL tear, and it's like, man, this guy can't catch a break. But people's next thought was, okay, Steph's going to be healthy this season. He's going to get exposed. Okay? Going into the year, ESPN projected Golden State to be out west, the 14th seed. So not just to miss the playoffs, but to be the second worst team in the Western Conference. They had an 8% chance to make the playoffs coming in. 8% chance to make the playoffs. No Klay Thompson. No all-star teammate. And yet Steph still led the league in scoring. Golden State is on a 6-game winning streak and an opportunity to make the playoffs against the defending champs on Wednesday. I'll get into that later. As we have a comment from my main man, Barry Grant Jr. He says, I have a right to fight. Steph is not the MVP. Amazing season. There have been many players that have had seasons like this. Kobe Bryant averaged 35.4 points per game and did not win. Just stop it. Well, I think Kobe should have won the MVP that year, Barry. I'm one who believes Kobe should have won. Steve Nash is one of the best point guards ever. I don't think Steve Nash should have an MVP. I'm sorry. Kobe deserved it over Steve Nash that year, and Shaq deserved it the next year over Steve Nash. No question. There's no question about it. Steve Nash was a great point guard. He's a great guy. He's a great ambassador for the game of basketball. But he didn't do that. I mean, Kobe had nothing on that Lakers team. Kobe didn't have anybody on that Lakers team. He averaged 35 a game and carried him to the playoffs. A year later, Shaq had an unbelievable year. And for some reason or another, Steve Nash still won the MVP. So, listen, we've seen guys robbed of the MVP before. It's happened. James Harden deserved it in 2017, but Russell Westbrook got it because he averaged a triple-double. But then since that, he's done it 3 more times. He's never been in the MVP discussion. So, listen, the media likes to change their narrative on what an MVP is. Crazy me, I take it for what it's called, most valuable player. Not the player with the best overall season. Most valuable player. Denver would not be a playoff team without Nikola Jokic. I submit that. There's no question about it. They would not be a playoff team without Nikola Jokic. They wouldn't. Maybe if they had Jamal Murray, I don't know. I know they wouldn't if they didn't have Murray or Jokic. Without Golden State, last year, Golden State had the worst record in the entire NBA without Steph. So, and then this year, without Steph Curry on the basketball court for the Golden State Warriors. Think about this. I've repeated the stat a million times. Without Steph, they are the 7th worst offense in NBA history. 6 offenses in the history of the game of basketball, I guess in the shot clock era, or since they've been tracking this stuff. When Steph's off the floor, they're the 7th worst offense in NBA history. I mean, that's, if you took Nikola Jokic off the Nuggets, you tell me they'd be the 7th worst offense in the history of the game of basketball in the National Basketball Association? I don't know. He's valuable. I'm not, Giannis is valuable. I think Giannis is in the top 5 for MVP. Giannis had an amazing season, just kind of went under the radar for whatever reason. He's a back-to-back reigning MVP and didn't get enough credit as far as I'm concerned. But if we're talking about most valuable player, I really don't know how it's not Steph. And I'm trying to look at this as objectively as possible, as I have another comment from Barry. He says, I agree with you about the media moving the goalposts. I love the compelling argument for Steph, though. Great stuff. I appreciate that, man. So, again, we'll discuss Steph later, the Warriors, and the Lakers later on in the show. I want to move to Brad Stevens, though, for a little bit. So the Boston Celtics, I think by anybody who watches the game of basketball closely, anybody who's an NBA fan, would say, certainly if you're a Celtics fan, would say, yeah, the Celtics really underachieved this year. 2 of the last 3 years, they've been to the Eastern Conference Finals. Last year they got there. We're within 2 wins of getting to the NBA Finals, right? Jason Tatum had the best year of his career. Jaylen Brown was an all-star before he got hurt, unfortunately, not that long ago with the wrist. And all that being said, the Celtics are now in the play-in as the 7 seed. Excuse me. So the Celtics are 2 straight losses away from being out of the playoffs with I wouldn't call it a stacked roster. It's not a stacked roster. I mean, Jason Tatum's a great player. No question about it. Jaylen Brown's an all-star. Kemba Walker is not what he used to be in Charlotte, but then again, he is in a reduced role where he's not the primary scorer like he was with the Hornets, but he's still a really good player. And, Tristan Thompson, I thought would be a huge acquisition for the Celtics, and he was good, but didn't give you what we thought he'd give the Celtics. All that being said, I think it's time to move on from Brad Stevens. It is not because he's not a great coach. He is a great coach. There's no question about it. X's and O's, Brad Stevens is as good as they come. He is. But I feel like he's kind of been the one coach in the NBA who seems to go without criticism. I think Eric Spoelstra, who I think is a better coach, was just, criticized for years when it was LeBron, D-Wade, Bosh. By the way, big congratulations to Chris Bosh for making the Hall of Fame. Well deserved. But those stacked Miami Heat teams in the early 2010s, people are like, oh, Eric Spoelstra is just going along for the ride. You could throw any coach in there and they'd be great. That might be true. I mean, look at Steve Nash in Brooklyn, right? It's a stacked team in Brooklyn. It's kind of hard to screw that up. But when you look at what Eric Spoelstra has done since, he's gotten the Heat to the playoffs multiple times, got him to the finals last year. There was no LeBron, D-Wade, or Chris Bosh. So he's proven himself and how great of a head coach he is. Brad Stevens, again, X's and O's is a great coach. But as Steve Kerr once said, Steve Kerr is one of the better coaches in the league. He said 10 X's and O's is about 10% of coaching in the NBA. When you get to the NBA, these guys know basketball. I mean, they do. Some guys, younger guys rely on just God-given talent. But once you get to become a veteran, you know the game. You really do know the game. Some more than others. LeBron's got the best basketball IQ I think I've ever seen. I mean, he's a basketball. He's brilliant. But everybody pretty much knows how to play the game. A coach helps, but he's not going to be the end-all be-all necessarily at times. Steve Kerr once said 10% of coaching the NBA is X's and O's. 90% of it is managing personalities. Brad Stevens is not good at managing personalities. He's just not. It seemed like the Celtics were crumbling last year in the bubble. It was like a huge story when they had a big argument in the locker room after, I think it was game 2 when they lost to the Heat in the conference finals. Brad Stevens didn't handle that situation very well, right? And so we see this year the inability to make adjustments, the inability to close close basketball games, right? Just up and down. Celtics have been the most inconsistent team in the league, it seems like. And I think it's time to move on. Yesterday, in a game that meant nothing to the Celtics, it meant nothing. They're locked in as the 7th seed. They were going to play, the winner of the Wizards-Hornets game, right? And they're playing a game yesterday against the New York Knicks, and it was actually a pretty entertaining game. Celtics came back, made it a game. But there was a point where a guard for the Celtics by the name of Romeo Langford, there was a whistle, and you could see Brad Stevens say something to him. And Romeo Langford said in response, "Shut the you-know-what up." That's a bench player doing that. That's a guy who doesn't get that many minutes. Now, maybe that's a thing between Romeo Langford and Brad Stevens. I don't know. Maybe that's just a beef that they have. But you see on the bench, they show these mic'd ups with coaches on the sidelines during timeouts. The guys in Boston just don't look engaged. And I don't think it's because, their head's not in the game. I think his voice is just running hollow. I see this in New Orleans with Stan Van Gundy. You see the guys Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball. Stan Van Gundy's voice runs hollow. Brad Stevens' voice runs hollow in that Celtics locker room and in that Celtics with that Celtics team. So I think it's safe to say that as great as Jason Tatum is, he's still young. What is he, 23? He does need some sort of guidance, right? Jaylen Brown does. A coach is there more than anything in the NBA. Not to teach X's and O's. You kind of know by this point how the game of basketball is supposed to be played. It's all about, okay, can your coach connect with you? When it's a tight, big playoff game, can you trust your coach to bring the guys together and say, hey, let's play our best basketball? And obviously, multiple other things that a head coach is supposed to do. As I have another comment here from Barry. He says, Brad Stevens may have lost his team. However, Jason Tatum is to blame. He's not a leader. His body language sucks. And how many coaches need to go before Ainge steps down? That I will definitely give you. I think Danny Ainge I've been critical for the last few months of Danny Ainge on this show because I feel like the Celtics are a lot like the Green Bay Packers, who I've obviously criticized at length since the Aaron Rodgers news broke. That you get, you draft very well. Green Bay's drafted decent, defensively at least. Green Bay's not a terrible drafting team. Boston is great at drafting. They drafted Jason Tatum. They drafted Jaylen Brown. They drafted Marcus Smart. Okay, Terry Rozier, who's in Charlotte now, they drafted him. They're a good drafting team. The problem is they're not aggressive in free agency. They're not aggressive in trades. I mean, the 2019 class of free agents, it was just Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis was on the market, right? And, these big name players, and they got Kemba Walker. No disrespect to Kemba, but there's Klay's on the market, and Kevin Durant's on the market, and Kyrie Irving's on the market, and the reigning finals MVP at the time, Kawhi Leonard, was on the market, and they just weren't aggressive. And they're not aggressive in trades. I always say, but one time the Packers were aggressive and got Charles Woodson, it won them a Super Bowl. But one time the Celtics were aggressive, they had drafted Paul Pierce, but they got Ray Allen and they got Kevin Garnett, and they won the championship, and they went to 2 finals in 3 years. What do you know? So that's been my biggest problem with Danny Ainge and the Celtics front office, is they haven't been aggressive enough in free agency. I also agree. I don't think Jason Tatum's a natural-born leader. Some guys are, some guys aren't. That's just the way it is. I think Kevin Durant is, today, the best player on the planet. I don't think he is a great leader. right? I don't, and I don't know if Brooklyn has a leader. Is it James Harden? Is it Kyrie? I doubt it's Kyrie. And I don't think it's Kevin Durant either. Is it Steve Nash, DeAndre Jordan? We're kind of getting a little desperate here. So you see my point. So I think the criticism of Jason Tatum's leadership is absolutely fair. I don't think he's a natural born leader. But I think as far as when it comes to body language, I see that in the entire Celtics team, except Kemba Walker. He's always smiling. He's always grinning. Outside of that, everybody's body language sucks in Boston. So I don't know if that has to do with Jason Tatum individually or the fact that, like I said, Brad Stevens' voice is kind of run hollow. Listen, if they do fire him, just like Doc Rivers, he'll get a coach elsewhere. He's a great coach. There's no question about it. I just don't know if he can connect with guys the way that Greg Popovich can or Steve Kerr can. Let me think of another coach. Quinn Snyder in Utah. Man, does he connect well with those guys with the Jazz? Monty Williams does it as good as anybody. I don't think Brad Stevens has that it factor that you need in a championship coach. Again, he's great X's and O-wise, but I just don't think he can connect with a basketball team, at least a championship team. But I do think the front office in Boston does deserve some blame because of the fact that they're not aggressive in free agency or at the trade deadline. So I think everybody's to blame at this point. So here we go. I've got my NBA awards. This is not who I think will win. This is who I would vote for if I had a vote in the NBA media. Let me say this first because I've said this in the show for a while. I think select members of the media. I don't think it should be just the national media. I think it should be like select members that have been in there for a while. Like, let me throw out one. Like Bill Plaschke in LA. He's one of the best columnists that this country has when it comes to professional sports. Certainly in Los Angeles. Bill Plaschke. Let's think. Rachel Nichols at ESPN. Stephen A. Smith. Chris Broussard, like trusted members of the media, I think should vote for these awards. And then I think the rest of the votes should go to players and coaches. Because at the end of the day, the coaches coach against these guys. The players play against these guys. They know. They see these guys up close and personal. It's no disrespect to the media. They cover these guys. I get it. But they don't know to the level that a coach or a player does. But this is just my humble opinion. These are who I think the NBA awards should go to. So let's start with Rookie of the Year. I think this is a pretty easy one. I think Rookie of the Year is Anthony Edwards with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I was a little iffy on the number one pick of Anthony Edwards by the Timberwolves last year at the draft. I had a feeling it'd be LaMelo Ball. I really did think he'd go number one. He didn't. He ended up sliding to 3 with the Hornets. I think if LaMelo had played enough games, I think LaMelo is Rookie of the Year considering what he's done with the Charlotte Hornets and the fact that they've got a shot. They're the 10 seed now, so they're in trouble, but they still have a shot to make the playoffs, whereas the Timberwolves were never in the conversation to begin with. I get that. But since Anthony Edwards has been into the starting lineup, he's been really good. The Timberwolves got a little hot at the end of the year. They won 5 of 10, which for them is not bad. He averaged 19 points a game, so it seems like he has a bright future in Minnesota. And the question is, can they build let's talk about championship team. Let's talk about a playoff team around him, Karl Anthony Towns, and D'Angelo Russell. So that's kind of up in the air. Now, Coach of the Year, there's plenty of candidates for Coach of the Year. I think you could say Monty Williams in Phoenix. I think you could say Quinn Snyder in Utah. I think you could possibly say Doc Rivers in Philadelphia. But I think there's a clear Coach of the Year, Tom Thibodeau. Nobody expected anything from the Knicks this year. They were the 12 seed last year. They had some nice players, but nobody. I mean, best case scenario, we thought, okay, maybe they get in, they sneak in as the 8 seed, but nobody's really thinking about the Knicks going into the year. And the New York Knicks not only make the playoffs, not even they're going to be the 4 seed. Let's just say that out loud. The New York Knicks are going to be the 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. So they're going to have home court advantage in the first round. And right now, my opinion may change before Friday's show, before the playoffs start this coming weekend. But they're playing the Atlanta Hawks. And while I like Atlanta, and by the way, speaking of Coach of the Year, I think Nate McMillan, they fired Lloyd Pierce. Nate McMillan comes in, and that Hawks team looks completely different. I said last year in the show, Nate McMillan should have never been fired by Indiana. You see what the Pacers are now without him. I think his name should be in the running, but I would give Tom Thibodeau the award. But when you look at the Knicks, I'm actually favoring them to get to the second round. So we're talking about a team that was the 12 seed last year and could possibly be the one of the final 4 teams in the Eastern Conference in a couple of weeks. Job well done, Tom Thibodeau. I didn't think it would work. I feel like his voice had kind of run hollow in some locker rooms in Chicago and Minnesota. Clearly not. That team plays their tails off all 48 minutes every single game. Not a championship team by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely a team I think can get to the second round and possibly give a team like Milwaukee or give a team like they wouldn't play Milwaukee. They probably play Philly. Could give the 76ers some problems and maybe take it 6 or 7 games. Who knows? But job well done, Tom Thibodeau. Sixth man of the year. This race got a little tight towards the end. I would still give it, though, to Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson, all year long, he's had 30-point games. He had a 41-point game recently against my Warriors. He had a 33-point game the other night. I can't remember who it was against. I know he had 33 off the bench. He's a little bit like J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith was one of the better 6 men coming off the bench in his prime. J.R. Smith took some really bad shots. Occasionally he makes some of them, right? That's kind of Jordan Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson has the greenest of green lights. If he's got the ball, he's probably not going to be passing. He's going to take a shot. For better or for worse sometimes, but I feel like he did a good job of keeping the Jazz afloat, keeping them in the position to get that number 1 seed, which they clinched last night. I thought he did a great job. So I think he's the 6th man of the year. He averaged 18 points a game. That's pretty solid coming off the bench. Now, most improved player of the year. This is also one that can be in Jeremy Grant was a front runner for a while. Before he got hurt, Christian Wood's name was in the mix. But I got to give it to an all-star. And that all-star is Julius Randle. That's right. I got 2 New York Knicks taking home NBA awards. Tom Thibodeau, Coach of the Year. And I think Julius Randle is this year's most improved player. He's an all-star this year. Man averaged a double-double, 24 points, 10 rebounds. That's darn good. We always thought Julius Randle was like a good player, but I don't know if any of us ever really saw like all-star, like best player on a high-end playoff team. That's what he was this year. And so give him credit. He vastly improved his offensive game. He vastly improved his three-point shooting. And so give Julius Randle credit. He had an outstanding season. And again, the Knicks with an opportunity possibly to beat the Atlanta Hawks and move on to the second round. Now, this is going to be a controversial one, and people aren't going to like this. Defensive Player of the Year. I'm seeing right now that Rudy Gobert is the favorite. I think it's ridiculous, personally. He's won 2 Defensive Player of the Years. I think it's insane that he won either of them. No disrespect. He's a phenomenal rim protector. But to me, a Defensive Player of the Year should be somebody that goes out and guards somebody. Right? Guards. We saw what Devin Booker did to Rudy Gobert. He had him in the spin cycle, man. We've seen what the best guards in the league have done to Rudy Gobert over the years, one-on-one. So he's not a good one-on-one defender. He's a phenomenal rim protector. But so is Miles Turner. And nobody's talking about Miles Turner as Defensive Player of the Year. So I think just being a great rim protector is not enough. To me, there are 2 guys, and obviously I'm going to pick one, but there are 2 guys that can guard in the NBA that are better than anybody at guarding all 5. Before I get into those 2 guys, Barry comments again. He says, "Get Rudy out of here." Ben Simmons is the clear-cut fave. That was who I was going to get to first. Ben Simmons, 6'11", physically gifted point guard. Great season defensively. You're talking about a point guard. How many point guards in the NBA can guard 1 through 5? Not many. Now, of course, he's not the size of a Tony Allen, for example. Tony Allen wasn't a point guard, but he was one of the better, if not the best guard defender of all time. Kobe said it. Kevin Durant said it. Those are 2 of the best scorers of all time. Come on. That's pretty high praise coming from those 2 guys. So I'm not saying Ben Simmons is Tony Allen, but Ben can guard your point guard or he can guard your big man. Simple as that. And I know I'm about to get a lot of pushback for this, but darn it, I'm going to say it anyway. Your Defensive Player of the Year, if it's Ben Simmons, let me just say this. If it's Ben Simmons, I got no problem with it. Ben Simmons had a great year. He's a great defensive player. There's no question about it. But to me, the Defensive Player of the Year is my man, Draymond Green, who deserves his 2nd Defensive Player of the Year. I know I'm about to get a lot of heat for that. Here's why. When you look at their numbers, Draymond averaged more blocks and steals than Ben Simmons. Those are big defensive stats now. Draymond averaged more steals than Ben Simmons and more blocks, and he's shorter. Draymond's about 6'6", 6'7". Ben Simmons is about 6'10". So Ben has a clear physical advantage. Again, I got no problem if he wins it. No problem. Draymond's going to be first team all defense. That he just is. He's going to get it over Giannis. I didn't think Giannis was as good defensively this year, especially considering he won this award last season. But put Ben Simmons to the side. Name me a better player in the NBA that can guard 1 through 5. Giannis can't guard point guards. He can guard big men occasionally. Again, I don't know if he likes to get physical down in the paint, but as far as the smartest defensive players, as far as guys who can guard 1 through 5, there's a reason Draymond garners some comparison to Dennis Rodman, right? Some of it's the way they play, but Dennis can guard 1 through 5. Draymond can do that as well as anybody, and to me, better than Ben Simmons. His numbers back it up. He's going to be first team all defense. That's Draymond Green in a nutshell. Here we go. Here's the pushback. Oh my God, why am I not surprised? Listen, there was a play, and again, 76ers fans comment if I didn't see this. There was a play in a game earlier this season with Draymond Green. I think it was against the Indiana Pacers. I think it was against the Pacers. It was a 3-on-1 fast break. And Draymond, forget, there wasn't even a shot taken. Draymond stopped. There wasn't even a shot taken. They had to bring it back out because he did such a good job stopping the fast break. Personally, I think Draymond should have 2 Defensive Player of the Years. I think Kawhi deserved the first one in 2014-15. Draymond should have won Defensive Player of the Year they won 73 games. He, of course, won it the season after that. And I think he's your Defensive Player of the Year this season. I thought Draymond had a great year. So here we go. MVP. These are my top 5 for most valuable player, starting with number 5. Number 5 is the most improved player, Julius Randle. I think to me, I would vote him 5th as far as MVP. Again, you're talking about a guy that, averaged 24 points, 10 rebounds, averaged a double-double. No all-star teammates, no all-stars. And he got the Knicks not just to the playoffs, but as the 4 seed. I think he and Tom Thibodeau deserve a ton of credit. I would vote Julius Randle 5th on the MVP list. Again, no all-star teammates, and you're amongst the Sixers. The only teams in the East that have a better record than you are the Sixers, Nets, and Bucks, who everybody thinks, including myself, have championship aspirations. That's a darn good season. Not saying Julius Randle's like a top 10 player, but this season, as far as most valuable player, he's in the top 5. Going to number 4, Chris Paul. Chris Paul is my 4th most valuable player. His numbers aren't jaw-dropping. He's averaging about 16 points a game. I think he's 2nd in the NBA in assists, 2nd or 3rd in assists. His numbers aren't going to blow you away. But we're talking about a Phoenix Suns team that barely missed the playoffs last year, just by the skin of their teeth. And Chris Paul comes in, and we all thought they'd be a playoff team once they added Chris Paul. But now they're the 2 seed in the West, and they had the 2nd best record in the NBA once Chris Paul joined. CP3, everywhere he goes, they win instantly. Okay, outside of his first couple of years with the Charlotte franchise, he went there. They went to the playoffs multiple years. The Clippers were a dumpster fire. He goes to the Clippers, and they get to the playoffs year in and year out. Let's see. He gets traded to the Rockets. The Rockets went from a team that had a 2nd-round exit the year prior, and then the first year they have Chris Paul. Some believe that had he been healthy for the Western Conference Finals, they would have beaten a fully loaded Warriors team. That's how I disagree, but that's how valuable Chris Paul is. So he gets traded to the Thunder last year, and we all thought, okay, the Thunder are going to trade him and they're going to tank. No, they had to trade him this year because he was so good. They were the 5 seed. They were trying to tank, and Chris Paul got them to the 5 seed out west, and they almost beat the Houston Rockets in the first round with James Harden and Russell Westbrook. And he goes to the Suns this year, a talented team, well-coached team. But they go from the 10 seed. They were the 10 seed. They finished behind Memphis and Portland. They go from the 10 seed last year to the 2 seed this year. That's MVP caliber stuff. Most valuable player, Chris Paul is my number 4 guy. Number 3, this may be a little controversial, but I think it's Giannis. I think Giannis is 3rd for most valuable player. First of all, he's averaged 28 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists. his numbers are basically identical to the last 2 years when he won the MVP award. So this is once again the media moving the goalposts, changing the narrative of what an MVP is. Russ won an MVP back in 2016-17 because he averaged a triple-double. Well, he's done it 3 more times, and his name has never even been mentioned. Okay? Giannis has put up, again, 28 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists. Those are amazing numbers. Those are amazing numbers. They're actually better numbers than Nikola Jokic, if we're going to go that direction. But he's got a Bucks team that is kind of average, having people fooled that they're championship contenders. Like that's what Giannis Antetokounmpo is doing this season, and that he's done the last 2 seasons. I think he's got a limited head coach in Mike Budenholzer. Chris Middleton is not a superstar player by any stretch. Love Drew Holiday, but as a role player, not as a second best player on the team. And yet the Bucks are the 3 seed in the East and possibly have a shot to get to the finals. I don't think they will, but that's what Giannis has done for the 3rd consecutive year. He needs a jump shot. That is my biggest criticism of Giannis. That's everybody's biggest criticism of Giannis. He needs a jump shot. But once he gets that, he'll probably be the most unstoppable player in the league. He's already, numbers say, he's the most unstoppable player within 5 feet of the basket since Shaq. That's what Giannis is doing. That's what Giannis has done for a 3rd straight year. So if he's won the last 2 MVPs and he's putting up numbers that are identical to what he's done the last 2 years, and the production as a team has been the same, then he should be in the top 3 for MVP. Number 2 is Nikola Jokic. Listen, Jamal Murray got hurt in a game in mid-April, and the Nuggets still kept doing their thing, right? They're the 3 seed in the West. Nikola Jokic put up great numbers, 26 points, 11 rebounds. He had the best assist season by a big man since Wilt. And as I said about Russell Westbrook last week, if you're putting up numbers that are comparable to Wilt Chamberlain, you're having yourself a heck of a season. And that's what Nikola Jokic did. Again, almost averaged a triple-double, 26 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, and he got the Nuggets to the 3rd seed in the West. He had a great year. But come on. We all know who the real most valuable player is. Wardell Stephen Curry II. We're talking about a guy who led the league in scoring. I already gave the stats earlier, so I don't even know why I'm doing this, but I'm doing it anyway. Led the league in scoring, had his best 3-point shooting season, became the Warriors' all-time leading scorer passing. Wilt Chamberlain, again, getting into Wilt territory is always a good thing offensively, and carried a Warriors team that was projected to be the 14 seed to the playoffs. Okay? No all-star teammates, inconsistent play from virtually everybody, and yet Steph, consistent as always, got the Warriors to the playoffs. This year, I think it's fitting that going into the season, it was supposed to be the year that Steph got exposed, and he led the NBA in scoring while facing defenses like this. And there you have it. That's my MVP. That's my MVP all day long. So one more topic left in the show. So actually, let me go through. Here's who I got for my awards. I think Anthony Edwards is Rookie of the Year. I think Tom Thibodeau is Coach of the Year. I think Jordan Clarkson should be the 6th Man of the Year, although I think that is close with his teammate Joe Ingles. I think Julius Randle is absolutely the most improved player. I think Draymond Green is Defensive Player of the Year. And then my top 5 for MVP goes from 5 to 1. Julius Randle, Chris Paul, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic, Steph Curry. There you go. That's how I feel. So finally, before we end the show, we got the play-in. The NBA's inaugural play-in starts tomorrow night, 6:30 Eastern Time, 3:30 Pacific, starting with the Charlotte Hornets taking on the Indiana Pacers. Now, let me see if I can pull this up here. The NBA's play-in. Is this it? There we go. So you can see that there. So basically, here's how it goes. For those of you that don't know, the 9 seed is going to play the 10 seed. Okay, the winner of that game moves on to the 2nd and final play-in game. The loser, their season's over. Then you've got the 7 seed taking on the 8 seed. The winner of that game is the permanent 7 seed of the playoffs. The loser of that game plays the winner of the 9-10 game, 9 seed versus 10 seed game. So hopefully that wasn't too complicated. It is kind of hard to explain. So starting with the game on top there, The Charlotte Hornets, 10 seed Charlotte Hornets taking on the Indiana Pacers. I'm going to take the Pacers to win 102-98. I think it's a close game. Malcolm Brogdon's had a great year. He's led the Pacers in scoring about 21 points per game. You look at Domantas Sabonis, who's averaged double-double, was an all-star once again. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the league. He's a really good player. Since he left Oklahoma City, he's just blossomed into a star in the NBA. Charlotte was a fun story. I think their announcers kind of get on my nerves a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. LaMelo Ball had an excellent rookie year. Terry Rozier had a great year. Bridges did. I think they're well coached, and I think they've got a bright future ahead, especially with LaMelo leading the ship. But I think they're not ready to get to the playoffs quite yet. I think their season will come to an end tomorrow night on the road against the Pacers. The Pacers will move on to the second play-in game for an opportunity to get the 8 seed. And then the game tomorrow night, I can't wait for this one. 9 p.m. Eastern on TNT, the 8 seed Washington Wizards, who are on fire right now, will take on the 7 seed Boston Celtics, who I discussed earlier in the show. Boston is obviously, again, as I discussed with Brad Stevens, vastly underachieved. Jason Tatum's had a great year. Before he got hurt and out for the year, Jaylen Brown was an all-star. Outside of that, there's not been that much. There's not been that great to speak. They haven't been that great to speak of. Are the Boston Celtics? The Wizards, on the other hand, have Bradley Beal, who's second in the NBA in scoring, and Russell Westbrook, who for the 4th time in 5 years averaged a triple-double and is playing his best basketball, some of his best basketball we've ever seen. Steph was the Western Conference Player of the Month this month. Eastern Conference Player of the Month was one Russell Westbrook. So he's been playing out of his mind lately. Give him credit. Give the Wizards credit for, Scott Brooks has done a good job for getting to this point. People thought they'd be the 10 seed in the play-in, and they're the 8 seed. So they only got to win one game to get in the playoffs. I think it's close for a while. I believe the Washington Wizards will pull away late and win this game 115-106. And you know what that sets up? This has gone underreported, but if the Wizards win, which I believe they will, I think they'll go into Boston at the Garden and beat the Celtics. If the Wizards win, we're going to get Kevin Durant versus Russell Westbrook in the first round. Heck yeah. We thought we'd get that when KD left to go to Golden State. We thought we'd possibly get a Warriors-Thunder matchup in the playoffs. That never came to fruition because Westbrook kept getting eliminated in the first round. But we may get it out east. KD, Russell Westbrook, possibly 2-7 matchup. If the Wizards win, I believe they will, 115-106, and put the Celtics in jeopardy of missing the playoffs. Now out west, the Western Conference play-in starts on Wednesday, starting with the 10-seed San Antonio Spurs taking on the 9-seed Memphis Grizzlies. Now, these two teams have had some great playoff series in the last decade. I think they even met in the Western Conference Finals back in 2013, I think it was. This is a Grizzlies team that's kind of similar to those teams that had Conley and Gasol and Zach Randolph. Maybe not as many big name guys, but you got John Morant, who's a star player in this league. You got Jaren Jackson, who's played well since he came back from that injury that he suffered last year in the bubble. Valanciunas is having an excellent year. I think he's averaging a double-double, if I'm not mistaken. And then, Taylor Jenkins has done a good job coaching this team. They're great defensively. Dylan Brooks is one of the best defensive guards in the league. Like, he's obviously not as good as this guy I'm about to mention. He's kind of their Tony Allen. He'll take your best guard, and he's not going to stop him because he can't stop superstar players in the NBA, but he'll at least contain him. He'll give him problems. He'll frustrate him a little bit. That's what Dylan Brooks can do, and he can knock down the three. I think it's a close game. I think it's kind of a vintage Spurs-Grizzlies game. I think the Grizzlies pull it out at the end. They win 100-97. Somewhat, I guess, in today's NBA, a low-scoring game. And the Spurs season will come to an end. They have not been playing good basketball recently. The Grizzlies will advance to the second play-in game. Now, before I get into the final game, as far as the second play-in game, I'll have a show on Thursday before the Eastern Conference game, and obviously the Western Conference game will be the day after. I'll predict those two later in the week when they happen. So thus far, I've got the Pacers beating the Hornets, 9-seed Pacers beating the 10-seed Charlotte Hornets, and moving on to the second play-in game. And I've got the Wizards going on the road to Boston, winning against the Celtics, putting them at the 7 seed and matching them up with the Brooklyn Nets. Boy, what a series that could be. A lot of points in that one. And then I've got in a defensive struggle that gets a little high scoring in the second half. I'm going to take the 9 seed Grizzlies, beating the San Antonio Spurs, the 10 seed San Antonio Spurs. Spurs season comes to an end. Grizzlies stay alive. They will play for an opportunity to be the 8 seed on Friday. And now, the best rivalry, best one-on-one player rivalry, I think without a question, since Magic and Larry. 2 of the 3 best players in the game. LeBron James, Steph Curry will be the 2 headliners. It is a team sport. Lakers, Warriors. We all know those are the 2 headliners, just like a heavyweight fight. There's other fights on the card, but we're all here for the big one, right? So you're going to have the 8 seed Golden State Warriors, my Golden State Warriors, visiting the defending NBA champions, 7 seed Los Angeles Lakers at the Staples Center, 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. This is going to be a fun one. I mean, this is kind of what we all wanted, right? This is the NBA has got to be just ecstatic right now. This is exactly what they were hoping for when they created the plan. You've got a guy who's an MVP candidate and I think should win the MVP, and Steph taking on LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the defending champs. Like, that's, man. I mean, you want to talk about drama? That's it right there. This is going to be a fun night for the NBA. I think the NBA as a whole wins regardless of the result of this one. We all know there's got to be a winner. Winner gets to the 7 seed. Loser is going to play, I believe, Memphis on Friday to be the 8 seed in the playoffs. When I look at the Los Angeles Lakers right now, I think they've won 3 or 4 straight games. I think 4 straight. They won their 4th straight yesterday against the Pelicans on the road. LeBron's dealt with some more ankle injuries. He tweaked it a little bit there in the 4th quarter. And then Anthony Davis seemed to be limping off the floor as well. I think they both will play. But this is yet another game where LeBron's getting, more and more banged up. Anthony Davis is getting more and more banged up. I thought the role players for the Lakers have played really well this last week. Caldwell Pope, Caruso's played really well. He shot 40% from 3. Drummond's played well. Gasol's played really well. Gasol got off to a really rough start at the beginning of the year. That's why they went and got Andre Drummond. But Gasol's come off the bench and done some really good things for the Lakers. And then you look at the Golden State Warriors. Won 6 straight games, including back-to-back against the Jazz and the Suns. You're talking about a win yesterday against the Memphis Grizzlies. Steph dropping 46. Wiggins has played better. Draymond's obviously he's been up and down, but over the last 6 games, he's been very steady. He's 4th in the league in assists. Jordan Poole off the bench has been excellent. Kevon Looney's getting double-digit rebounds. So you're talking about 2 teams that are playing pretty well right now. The difference, though, in Golden State and the difference in the Lakers is health. Both are great defensively. Lakers are have the best defensive rating in the NBA. The Warriors have the 5th best defensive rating in the NBA. So these are 2 great defensive basketball teams with certainly some offensive firepower. I've got 2 comments here from Barry. He says Steph is going to need to score 75 to win this game, and he says it's going to be a great game. Hold on. Here we go. Going to be a great game. So, first of all, I think it's close. I think it becomes a defensive struggle in the 4th quarter, kind of a back and forth. You can't really buy a basket, similar to how it was when Steph and LeBron matched up in Game 7 in 2016. But I think different from that 2016, Steph and the Warriors will come out on top and win 107 to 102, putting the Lakers in a position they did not think they'd be in to start the year, which is if you lose Friday against Memphis, I don't think they will, by the way. But if they did, they're going home. I got the Warriors. Remember this. The Warriors earlier this season, when they were not as good as they were now. Like Steph was doing his thing, Draymond somewhat, but Steph was just carrying the team at that point. It was like, can you get something from Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre, who was healthy at the time? You had Brad Wanamaker coming off the bench. That team is not as good as this team. I think everybody would agree with that. And Golden State in January came back on a healthy LeBron and a healthy Anthony Davis, a healthy Lakers team. Came back from 22 points down and won that game by a point in the 4th quarter at Staples Center. So I think when you compound all that, again, both teams are great defensively. Both teams got a lot of momentum. But man, the Lakers are banged up. Right? Drummond looks a little banged up when he's playing out there. AD got banged up again yesterday. LeBron tweaked his ankle a little bit. I think they'll both will play. Obviously, this is a huge game. but Golden State's healthy. Steph's ready to go. They got Friday's game off, so they played one game basically in a week. So they're well rested. They're ready to go. I think my Golden State Warriors become the 7 seed. They go on the road, upset the defending champ Los Angeles Lakers, and the Lakers will be in an elimination game on Friday. There you go. So I got Indiana beating Charlotte, Washington beating Boston, Memphis beating San Antonio, and Golden State beating the LA Lakers and becoming the 7 seed in the postseason and matching up with the Phoenix Suns. So this is going to be fun. The two games I'm looking forward to the most are the two nightcaps. Tomorrow night, Washington, Boston, and of course, Wednesday night, it's my team for crying out loud, Golden State and Los Angeles. So I love this play-in. I've described it kind of as the appetizer for the bigger meal, which is, of course, the NBA playoffs, which start on Saturday. But this is going to be a crazy play-in tournament. Can't wait for it. And so with that is all the time we have for today's show. Thank you all for stopping by. Be sure to catch Carving It Up on Thursday after these 4 play-in games. Who knows what we'll see? I'll definitely react to what we do see. But be sure to catch Carving It Up Thursday, as always, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here, Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow Carving It Up on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So hope everybody has a great week. Enjoy some great basketball. Please continue to stay safe. God bless.